Hi, welcome to another edition of The Chat, where we talk about all things Chatham County. My name is Catherine Glaspie, and I'm the Public Information Director for Chatham County. I am joined today by Abby Murphy, the Public Information Specialist here in the Public Information Office. And our guest today is going to be Dr. Jake Harper, who is our Director of Animal Services. So you kind of know the topic already, Animal Services, but we have some specific programs that we want to bring to you. You probably noticed that our format is a little bit different than when we started this about 6-7 months ago. We can't all be together in our room because we have to be safe, and we didn't want to have masks. So kind of hard to do a podcast when you've got a mask on and you're all kind of muffled and that kind of stuff. So the best way to do it was by Zoom. So you're going to see a lot of the chats via Zoom, probably for the next 6 to 8 months. And it's just part of our new normal abnormal, as we call it here. So with that, I'm going to get into our topic today. Dr. Harper is going to talk to us about a new program that we have here in Chatham County that we're piloting. It's actually one near and dear to my heart. Most people that know me know that I am just wildly this crazy animal person, maybe a little bit too much so sometimes, but trap, neuter, and return has always been something that I felt like we should do here. And I'm excited that we're getting to that point. Our program is actually called a TNVR because we're going to vaccinate as well as return. So Dr. Harper, tell us what this pilot program is and get us kind of started on this topic.
So we've started this pilot program to actually return healthy stray cats, rather than trap them, bring them to the shelter and have them, the majority of those cats actually were euthanized. I mean, we're talking, 70-80% of those cats. So we're looking at something to address this issue a little bit differently. What it involves is actually trapping the cats, then bringing them in for a surgery to spay or neuter them, and they're vaccinated for rabies and FVRCP, and then they're returned to where they came from. What that typically does is it frees up space in the shelter for healthy owned cats or previously owned cats or adoptable cats. And it's also a different way to address the overpopulation issue that we're seeing in Chatham County that we've seen for years.
So Dr. Harper, I just know from my reading about TNR programs that it's not an instant fix. This is going to take time to fix that overpopulation, but if you keep at it and you do it very methodically, you can actually reduce those populations by a great percentage over like 3 to 5 years. Is that what you're seeing too?
Yeah, there's some of the studies that say they're a little bit, that time, some of them are a little bit longer, but I think the biggest part of this is like, we go back to the reason that we're trying to remove these cats from the environment. And one is that they're a nuisance. Typically that's what we get calls for. They're stray cats. They're, getting in people's yards, getting in people's cars, defecating places, those, just causing a nuisance. And that is, a lot of that is because there are so many cats. The other part of that is that typically these cats in these situations aren't spayed or neutered. And a lot of the behaviors that we see with these that are related to these nuisance activities can be directly contributed to the fact that they're intact animals. Intact animals tend to roam more, especially the males. They tend to look for mates. They can tend to be territorial, and they go further in the environment. And the first step in this program is, if you put back, you're taking these animals away initially where we were just removing them from the environment, other cats fill their spot, because there's an amount of resource there that needs to be taken care of. And when you're feeding, when people are feeding these cats, the food's there, the cats will come. If you take cats away, then cats find a way to, sometimes they even make more cats because they're intact. So the situation is, if we put cats back, we're filling that space again, but we're filling it with cats that are spayed or neutered, which will behave more like we want them to behave. They don't roam. They don't typically go about, most of them are healthy cats to begin with, but they don't typically, go out of these small areas to look for food. They also can't reproduce. So you don't have one cat that can produce, 6 kittens every 6 months and then those cats, you don't have this multiplication that happens.
Right. And that's what we see a lot in the shelter is the result of that. Because you guys, as soon as it starts getting warm outside until it starts getting cold outside, and sometimes even longer, you're getting kittens in because all these unspayed and neutered cats are having kittens, and people bring them to the shelter. And you can adopt those out, but it's still an overpopulation and capacity issue.
Right.
So I think that's really important for people to know. Abby,
Yeah.
I know you have some questions. I'm sorry, Dr. Harper, go ahead.
Just speaking directly for kittens, we do see a lot of kittens, and a lot of times those are coming from stray cats. We can talk about them being feral, whether or not they're feral or not, doesn't really necessarily matter in these cases. But we have people that want to surrender they find a litter of kittens. This litter of kittens may be anywhere from a day old to 6 weeks old, and if they end up try to bring those to the shelter, we don't have the capacity oftentimes to care for these kittens. I mean, it's what probably better than most. These kittens, it's like having a baby. You have to feed these kittens every 2 hours. You have to take care of these kittens. We don't have the capacity in the foster program to support that. So what we recommend with people that that they're finding these litter of cats, they say that they're abandoned. Well, they're not abandoned typically. Typically, right. What happens is you've scared the mother off. So we're asking people, if you do find a litter of really young kittens, leave the kittens there. Watch them for 24 hours. If the mom doesn't come back, then certainly we can find something to do. We can try to find something to do with those cats. Sure. Unfortunately, a lot of times those cats, because of the just sheer labor intensity of raising kittens, some of those cats are euthanized because there's just nowhere to care for them.
Right.
We're working on other programs for that too. You do a lot of that, and the humane side will do some of those things too. But we're working at this from a variety of issues, for a variety of angles, and I think that's one of the angles we need to work from too.
Yeah, and you alluded to the fact that I do foster, and I tend to do younger kittens. I happen to like those bottle feeders. I'm crazy like that. For some reason, I want to get up every 2 hours, but you really do. You get up every 2 hours and feed them, and it's very, very intensive. So you don't have a lot of fosters necessarily that can do that. I want to come back to the foster program in a minute, just to make a general statement, but I know Abby is burning to ask a couple questions.
Well, I wanted to say that is a good tip, or if you come across some kittens, to wait maybe 24 hours to see what happens, because I would think, oh no, their mom left. So that's a good tip to know. And I was wondering, so when is this program starting, the Trap, Neuter, Vaccinate, Return program?
We've started it already. We've given out vouchers. It's a voucher program. So what happens is, the pilot program is set up to account for the animals the cats that would normally be brought here in traps that most likely would be euthanized. So it's typically those complaint-driven things where, my neighbor's feeding all these cats. What can I do about them? Or I've got all these cats I'm going to surrender to you. They're not really my cats. Those type situations. In that situation, then we can arrange to get a voucher. They can get a voucher for a spay or neuter. And typically what happens, they call us, we arrange for the voucher. We arrange for them to pick up a voucher or possibly a trap if they need it. Then they contact the Humane Society. When they contact the Humane Society, they're set up with an appointment to know the night before their appointment, they're to put the trap out, they trap the cat, and then they bring it to the Humane Society, give them the voucher, and they can have the surgery that day, and then they return that afternoon. We have a volunteer program set up with the Humane Society, so if there are issues with transportation, those type things, and they can actually talk to Courtney over at the Humane Society, and she can work with them with issues of transportation to get the cats back and forth.
So if somebody has one of these nuisance cats or a cat that they feel like should be a part of this program, how do they become a part of the program?
They would contact us. They give us the call at the 652-6575 number. We'll talk to them about the program. We get them set up to come by and pick up a voucher. We have a limited number of vouchers available, but we can accommodate a lot of people during the pilot program. what we'll do is if they have more, if it's more than one cat, you know, if we've got people that have maybe three, you know, 3, 4, 5, a multitude of cats that need to be trapped, we're doing it 2 vouchers at a time to give them time to trap, put them back, and then we can redo the vouchers, just
Sure.
to allow for more people to be involved. And also to, you know, if we were to get, you know, we have a limited number of traps available as well. So we got
Right.
to keep it, you know, it's it's a limited, like I said, it's a pilot program, so it's limited right now, but we want to see how this changes our life-saving capacity at the shelter.
How long is your pilot program going to run?
It's set to run for 3 months, but we have 315 vouchers.
Okay.
So when those vouchers are extended, that'll be kind of the end of the program. And hopefully once we can look at the data afterwards, we may be able to get additional funding for this.
Okay. Do you expect to, yeah, I think in terms of government, because I'm a government employee. So if it's 3 months long, you're already into it, and then you're going to look at the data. Does that mean that you'll start looking at funding for FY22, which for us at the county starts next July, to continue the program? Is that the plan?
Yeah, that's what we're looking at, to see kind of how it's going to work, and you know, look at some of the statistics, look at some of the just the community involvement. I think that's the other thing, is that's, you know, what we're finding now is there are many people that are for the program, and there are some people that are a little bit lukewarm on the program. And I think the lukewarm people, you know, I think if we can show that there are different ways to address the nuisance problems that they're seeing, I think that's where we try to get more people on board with this. I mean, it's, you know, it's a pretty big undertaking when you look at, you know, the amount of, you know, taking in 1,800 cats a year, or, you know, 1,800 stray cats.
Mm-hmm.
That's a pretty significant amount of money would be needed to spay and neuter all those cats. But we're trying, you know, as we introduce this program, hopefully we'll get kind of more, you know, we can get more community involvement, get more funding available so that we can proceed to, you know, do it a little bit more often.
Yeah, because I do know that just from being a part of this community that, you know, sometimes there are opportunities for funding outside of the source of taxpayer dollars. And I know
Right.
you guys have been looking at that and figuring out how we can leverage all the monies together to make the best program.
Right. The funding that we have for this program is from Best Friends, which is an animal welfare organization. So they're putting up the funds to do the pilot program, and hopefully there may be even funds left from them to come back
Mm-hmm.
in the program, but we have to kind of show that we were able to do this.
Right, absolutely. And I think that's one of the things that, you know, the community needs to see is that, and you're only talking 315 cats, so it isn't going to reduce the population quickly, because like we said before, it takes a little while for this to actually to work, but it does help figure out if it's going to be good for the shelter, because you're not going to have to bring in all these animals and then find out if they're adoptable or not.
Right.
And
That's what I've discussed. You know, I've had some of the, you know, discussions I've had with citizens, you know, about this. And, you know, if you look at it as just the individual cats that we're taking care of, that's one issue. But if you look at the overall issue of, okay, we have a limited amount of space we have at the shelter. So the only way to change any of the numbers is you don't intake cats, or you don't euthanize the cats, or you don't adopt the cats. You know, there's,
right.
You know, in and out. So you have to balance the in and out. And if we can adjust the way we take in animals, then we can adjust the way, then we can adjust the ratios of live release versus euthanasia, those kind of things. And the other part of this is, if you take in less animals, then you have more space to take care of the animals that you have that are adoptable. Right. So, you know, every cage that we have is, if we can actually get them in and adopted versus get them in, hold them and wait for them to be adopted, then we free up space to take in animals so we can better manage the population.
Sure, that makes sense. Abby, do you have any more questions that you want to ask Dr. Harper about the TNR program or TNVR program? I've got to remember to put that V in there.
Well, I think that just about covers it, because we were just wanting to know, how you could how you could go about getting involved if you think there's some cats that need to be, that you would like to have them neutered and vaccinated and returned. And the point of doing it, which is to reduce the capacity that Animal Services has for holding animals. But I know we wanted to talk about the free cat adoptions. So maybe we should change subjects that way and talk about this really happy topic of cute kittens and cats that are available.
No, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, not necessarily in conjunction with this, but just as a process, we have taken in a lot of cats. So one of our biggest things is our cat adoptions have decreased significantly, with all the COVID and the pandemic that's going on. We're seeing less visitors to the shelter. Some of that is by choice, because we are limiting the visitors by appointment only, so that we can kind of control the people that come in and out. But we're also seeing probably a little bit less interest in adopting animals at this time. So one of the ways we kind of drum up a little bit of, publicity and just get people into the shelter and know that learn about the cats is do free adoptions. The adoption includes everything that you would need for the cat to begin with. I mean, that includes a spay and neuter. It includes all the vaccines up until their age appropriate vaccines. They're all tested for feline leukemia, FIV. They're dewormed, and we're working on getting a lot of them up on the website. I think we've got some on the Facebook or on our Facebook page. We're getting a lot of those up there so people can go online. They can look at a cat on Facebook. They can pick a cat that they might want to come look at. They can schedule an appointment, come in to look at the cats. We haven't had a lot of visitors lately. It's been a little bit less, I think, with school starting back and people being at home. I think there's a lot more stuff going on that people want to handle right now. So I think that this may help us, get out the word that we still have animals to be adopted. So we, come by and pick one out.
So if you see a cat that you like on Facebook, because I know y'all are updating that regularly, what's the best way to reach out and find out if that cat is still available for adoption?
There is, typically the best way to do it is to call and ask. I mean, you can call the number 652-6575. We can talk to you about that. We'll get emails. There's a contact us linked on our actual website that we'll get people that will contact us through that. You can reply on Facebook. Sometimes, we monitor that Facebook page enough that we can kind of reply to those, usually within 24 hours if there's a request for an animal. Sometimes we may not get back to you, but if you don't get a response in one of the methods, the best, you certainly can call. And we're trying to keep it updated as far as like if an animal gets adopted, we're trying to put that back. We either take it down from the page or we may put something up to say, a little something on the web on the Facebook picture to say that it was adopted.
So let's talk about coming to the shelter right now. We are, just as in with all county buildings, we're trying to do most things by appointment only, or make sure that we can socially distance within the building when we bring visitors in. But in your case, we're doing by appointment only. So if someone is interested in an animal, or just, they don't see it on Facebook, but they just want to come in and kind of browse. I know that sounds a little weird to say browse, but
Right.
Come in and just see what's in the shelter at the moment. They can call that 652-6575. Did I say that right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, 6575 number and make an appointment. But you guys are open for adoptions from 1 to 4:30?
1 to 4:30 daily, except for Wednesdays and holidays.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're open. We have people that will call and, when we first started the appointments, we'd ask people to, look on the website or look on the Facebook page, pick a couple of animals that they were interested in, so we could kind of, keep the appointments kind of set up, because we thought that response would be a little bit more than what it is. But what we're doing now is like you said, if you want to come browse, if you want to come, if you don't see something that that you're particularly interested in on the Facebook page, give us a call, set up an appointment. We can get you in. We ask the same questions as you would be going, like if you're going to the doctor's office or another place, have you been exposed to COVID-19? Are you showing symptoms? We are taking temperatures before people come in the building. And we ask that you wear a mask when you come in. Typically, we try to limit it's a little bit difficult to limit the amount of people in each party to kind of to social distance, but we can typically accommodate everyone else. We have a lot of people that will just show up, and we try to take those people as we can, but we have to, the appointments tend to take precedence over people that just will walk in. So most people are pretty accommodating when that comes around. When hey, wait in your car. If it's too hot, you can wait in your car. We can call. We have a number on the door that we have people. Once again, that's that 652 number. They can actually call that number when they arrive to say, hey, I'm here. So we can set them up to, if they don't want to come to the front door and actually, wait on the actual front porch, they can wait in their car and wait for us to come get them. Tell us what car you're in, that kind of stuff. I will say that, lately we've had a lot of requests for rabies tags and pet registration. And we're doing those by mail only. Now, if there's a special situation that you would have that you, for whatever reason, you might need these rabies tags more, typically the turnaround is 7 to 10 days for the mail in when we get them and process them. If there's a problem with that and somewhere you need it to be sooner than that, we can certainly try to accommodate that. But I don't know, I want to stress that if there's a reason that you need to document that your animal has been vaccinated for rabies, the best documentation you have is that rabies certificate that you're given by the veterinarian. If you're traveling across state lines and you're worried about, needing proof of rabies for anything, that serves as your proof. There are some, various, like flights. If you're going to fly somewhere and you have to have a health certificate, same thing applies. It's not necessarily the tag and registration that they need, it's the actual proof of vaccine. So, in cases where people are urgently needing their rabies tag, we've relaxed some of the requirements that we have as far as like when we go to wellness checks and things like that. Like if they have a vaccine but they haven't registered, there's a lag time for that we're not necessarily enforcing, the 30 days after your vaccine to have that tag, just to accommodate people like that. But I will say that that's been the biggest thing that we've seen is more, a little bit of anxiety about not being able to get their tags, and we understand that. I think the biggest thing is work with us so we can get it in the mail. If you need something sooner, we can certainly try to accommodate that.
Absolutely. Okay. So I want to go back to the foster program for just a second. And I know you guys have a foster program, but it's in its infancy and it's not ready to grow yet.
Right.
But there are other organizations that you guys work with that do have foster programs. And I know I hear a lot, because I am a foster, I'll hear people say, well, I can't foster. I don't have time. I don't have space. Really doesn't, unless you're doing what I'm doing, where I have multiple fosters at a time. You don't need a lot of room. But sometimes people will say, well, I can't take on another pet right now. Or I just, a commitment to a pet can be anywhere from 5 years to 20 years. I'm not sure I'm ready to make that commitment, but they might be able to foster somebody for a week, 6 weeks, a month.
Right.
How would you tell those people to get involved?
So as of right now, the best way to go, you can give us a call and we can put you in contact with some of the rescue organizations in Chatham County. One of the big ones that we do that we do a lot of work with is Renegade Paws Rescue. They have a pretty robust dog foster program. They don't do a lot of cat fostering, but they do a lot of dog stuff. And they, of course, you have to, they have an application process that you go through to actually, they'll come look at your house, make sure that you can handle the animals that they're going to let you foster. If you have other animals that are there, they have to make sure they're okay with these dogs coming into the environment, make sure you're doing what you're supposed to do as far as rabies vaccines, taking care of those animals. But they, in the end, they provide the care, they provide the food, they provide things that you may need to hold on to these animals as long as you may need to hold them. There's GUR is another one, which is GRRR. They have a website and a Facebook page. I on the spot, I can't tell you what it stands for, but they do the same thing. They come in, they have a foster program. They will come pull animals from us to put in foster programs. And once they're released off their stray hold, they have started doing a lot. They do dogs. It's funny. Each of the rescues kind of have their own niche that they kind of do. Like with GUR, they typically take older dogs. They take, the older, medically need, medications needed, those kind of, senior dogs to put in foster. But he recently started doing a lot of cat stuff too. So
nice.
we have like I said, we have a pretty good, network of rescues that we can work with. Those are two of them. We have, there's a local veterinarian that actually does red clay rescue, and she does a lot of cat stuff. And one of the things I will say is, like, historically, when a cat came into the shelter and was tested for FIV, FEL, or feline leukemia, those cats were taken out. They weren't ideal for adoption.
Right.
And because back when I started my career as a veterinarian, 20 years ago, if you had a cat that had feline leukemia, FIV, those, we typically euthanize those cats because there's no treatment for those diseases. And with FIV, it's basically an immunodeficiency disease where they could be sick. If they get sick, they get sicker than other cats. It's, similar to the way HIV works in people, but just like with HIV in people, there's treatment for HIV in people, but it doesn't mean a death sentence for these animals that are diagnosed with these diseases. So that's, speaking of that, we've started using red clay as actually, if we have cats that are coming here that are perfectly normal adoptable cats, but they may be FIV positive, FELV positive, then they can help find homes for those cats.
That's awesome.
So it's saving a life. It's, it's not, like I said, fetal leukemia is one of those, it's a weird, like, we learn more and more about it every year. And while it can sometimes be a disease that causes pretty severe sickness, it doesn't always. And it's not really, running one test to diagnose it and seeing it, sometimes it shouldn't be the final say in some of these cats. So we were able to place those in homes too. So, with the help of all these rescues, we're able to find homes for these animals that we may not have been able to find homes with before. We still do adoptions here as well, but once again, it's an intake, outtake kind of thing. You take in too many animals, you don't have space for them. You have to figure out the best way to get them out. And using the foster programs that these organizations have, they can do that. I was actually looking at some, setting up our own foster program because I'd been contacted by a couple of citizens about, different ways to help people, especially now when people are at home, isolated. And one of the things that, I'll say in this podcast actually is that we're looking into doing some, senior related stuff with cats.
Okay.
Where, we can have these adoptable cats that we can actually work with some of the senior citizens, some of these, people that are at home, don't have much to do. We can put cats in, everybody needs a cat.
Absolutely.
Cats, petting a cat lowers your blood pressure. There's all kinds of, taking care of something gives you something to do.
And just the companionship.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can tap into that, and it's something, it's another way to save some lives. So, we're looking into that. Hopefully, within the next, 6 to 12 months, we can get a little bit more robust foster program here for cats and dogs where we do it directly. But when you have other organizations that are doing it really well, you kind of lean on them and do it with them.
Absolutely. I think that's a good way to do it. And since we're lucky enough in the county to have all those organizations that are willing to work with you to help these animals. And I know that those organizations are looking for fosters. So if you decide that you do want to foster after watching this, give Animal Services a call. They'll put you in touch with the right rescue group that can help you. I know a couple of my neighbors are doing it. They've each had a number of dogs that they have fostered. Sometimes they foster it for a week. Sometimes they foster it for 2 months. But it really has been rewarding to them. Their dogs like it because they have somebody new to play with.
Right.
And it is just not that hard of I guess it's just not that big of a burden on the foster to help save a life is what I'm trying to say. I'm sorry. My train of thought went away there. So I think that that's a great thing to do. I have one more topic I want to talk about before we let you go, because I know you have other things to do today.
Okay.
Since, we've talked about COVID-19 a couple of times. COVID-19 and animals. I mean, people are kind of afraid to adopt animals right now because we have seen some things where cats and dogs have gotten a COVID or a coronavirus.
Right.
But we're not really seeing transmission from animals to humans. But can you address that topic a little bit?
Yeah, I think, initially, it's a daily learning thing with COVID-19 is that every day I think we find out something new.
Mhm.
And when we first started finding out about this in the, back in February, I guess February, March, there was some concern. There were a couple of animals that were diagnosed with, I know there was a tiger at some point that was, that was diagnosed with COVID-19. There haven't been any known transmissions from animal, like from a dog or a cat to a person. There was also a concern about, the animals being fomites, which means the virus would get on an animal. The virus, you cough on your dog, someone else pets your dog and they lick their hand, then they could transmit it that way. That's a very controversial thing, and I don't think there's a lot of documented cases with that either. I will say that, part of the concern is it's a coronavirus. So we know for a fact that there are so many different coronaviruses that we documented. Dogs have a coronavirus specific, cats have a coronavirus, and so when you hear that coronavirus thing, people have a tendency to kind of lump them all together. The cat coronavirus doesn't typically infect people. Cats can, most cats probably have a coronavirus in their system. If you test them specifically for feline coronavirus, you would probably test, I don't know the statistics, but a large percentage of those cats will have it. So, the fear of not adopting an animal or not taking care of an animal because you might catch COVID-19 from them isn't really a founded thing. I think that, it all goes back to normal hygiene. The way you would get it, if there was a way to get it from an animal, the way you would get it would be through, touching it, not washing your hands.
Right.
Or letting them lick you in the face. People talk all the time, oh, you shouldn't let your dog or your cat lick you in the face. People do it all the time. It happens. I do it. I'm told you shouldn't, but you do. So that could be a risk. But honestly, that like I said, there's very little documentation about this. I think I recall a case of where there was a family that were all diagnosed with COVID-19, and then their dog also had it. But once again, where did it come from? Who did it? Where were the testing? There's so many ifs and unfounded stuff in these things. You can't really make a case out of all of it. I think the biggest part of it is wash your hands.
Yep.
And be careful.
Yep.
But I don't think having coronavirus or worrying about animals and cats and dogs transmitting coronavirus is something that we should be concerned with.
Yeah, I think the moral of that story was, one, don't own a tiger, and two, wash your hands. Don't touch somebody's animal and then lick your hand.
Right.
Why you would do that, I don't know, but nonetheless.
Anyway, regardless of a global pandemic.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
An animal. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so we're wrapping this up for today. Abby, final thoughts?
Well, I'm just excited to see what cats are available. I would like to go to Animal Services and maybe take some pictures if y'all need any help, because I'm interested, and I'm thinking maybe soon we might adopt a cat, because I know my daughter would really like it, but got to talk to the husband first.
Okay.
I keep trying to get her to come to my house, Dr. Harper, and look at one of the ones that I have, because, I have a collection. Those are foster cats. I don't have a collection of my own. I have a couple, but not a collection. Dr. Harper, final thoughts on either the TNVR or cat adoptions or anything else that you want to get out there today?
No, I think that, we're doing a lot of things. Our main goal here is to decrease euthanasia rates and increase life-saving capacity of the animal shelter. And that takes on a lot of different aspects. And I think, we're working from all different angles to do this. And, hopefully we'll see some advancement in this, and hopefully we'll be able to continue with some of these things and, continue to get community involvement with these things, and community support, I think, is the big part of it. It's like, the more people involved, I think animal welfare in Chatham County is increasing as we speak. And I think it all goes back to knowledge, and it all goes back to involvement. I think as long as we can, work together on all these things, I think we can move in the right direction.
All right. Well, my final thought of the day is either go adopt an animal or see about being a foster. And if you have any animals or any cats that are strays in your area, call about the TNVR program because we want this to be a wildly successful program. Dr. Harper, thank you for being here with us today. You're a regular guest on this show, so we'll be having you back in a couple weeks. You guys have a lot of things to do because you not only do the adoptions, but you also do enforcement. So we're going to talk about some of those things in the weeks coming up. So thank you so much for being here. Join us again next week for the chat, and we'll talk about yet another service. I think actually next week we're talking about National Preparedness Month because we are in that area of peak hurricane season. So join us next time, and thank you and have a great day.